Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting show where we dive into the stories behind successful businesses and bring you insider tips straight from the experts. And our expert today is Alena. How are you, Alena?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. Happy to
You're
be
very
here.
well. You're very welcome. Excited for you to be here as well.
Thank
Alena
you.
actually is a realtor with Exit Realty Premier Legacy. And we want to kind of share as your host. We actually sit down with business owners and we kind of from diverse industries and we kind of uncover what makes companies thrive, what makes these individuals thrive, what's the recipe for success, if you will. And from behind the scenes insights to practical advice, this podcast is your go to resource for learning about the services you use every day and discover ways to make the most of them. Also, I think it's always good to kind of hear from experts in terms of what makes them successful, in terms of if you're interested in becoming an entrepreneur or you're interested in getting into the real estate industry as an agent. I think this is going to be an awesome opportunity for you to get some insight. So with that being said, let's go in and tell us a little bit about what inspired you to become a realtor.
Hey, awesome. Yeah, so I became a realtor in Florida 10 years ago when I moved here. I relocated to Florida because I was freezing in Minnesota.
That
And
could
I just,
happen.
yeah, and with my background being in education, I was working in the college system, helping students, changing lives. That's what, I was put on this earth to do. And I just kind of got a little comfortable, right? And I don't like to be
Mhm.
comfortable. I want to be challenged. I want to continuously be thriving and growing. And there was a point where I was like, I don't I'm ready for a change. And I came down to Florida. I got to know Florida people and like, wow, the dynamic of the mindset and just like, there's a lot of hustlers here. And also known as entrepreneurs, but there's so many people that are just they're building something for themselves and their families. And I saw that, in my involvement with the chamber and with the Orlando Realtor Association and everything. Like I'm constantly surrounded by this drive and this passion, for entrepreneurship and growth. And it's contagious, and it's a better fit for me. So I moved down here from Minnesota to Florida, got my real estate license, and then I am a broker now though. So because I love to
Congratulations.
continuously grow, I am a broker and I'm an owner of Exit Premier Legacy.
That's gotta
So
be exciting, right? To be a
it's
broker.
so cool. So cool because I took my passion from in education, working with college students, to
Right.
now, transferring those skills over to working with other realtors, or other, it doesn't even just have to be a realtor. There's been a lot of other business owners that I've helped, right? Just throughout my own experiences and knowledge of starting a business and social media and setting up a website or just whatever it might be, like I'm able to transfer those skills of just wanting to help people now to working with more serious adults sometimes.
And that's actually well said. And I like what you said about helping, and you used the word entrepreneurship many times in the opening, as we're talking here. And I think
Mhm.
you said you always don't want to be stagnant, if I heard you correctly. And most
Correct.
entrepreneurs, right, they're constantly moving, they're constantly trying to reinvent themselves or try to help others, in their team to better themselves. And
Absolutely.
kudos for you for saying that. So let's kind of get into some real estate market insights. How would you describe the current market right now in Orlando?
So Orlando's hot. We will always be a hot market, right? Whether, I mean, it changes, it fluctuates. We are having a correction to our market, based on what happened in 2020 to 2022. There were 2% interest rates, 1.7. I know people that got under 2% interest rates. So obviously there, it was much more competitive, which drove our prices up. Well, now those prices are correcting. Everyone's like, oh, prices are going down. They're not necessarily going down, but they're correcting. Some are sitting on the market a little longer. Our average price of a home in Orlando right now is between 400 to 450,000. In that price range, they move a little faster than, the 500 and up homes, right?
Correct.
But if it's under and then the location is right, schools, families are looking now about this time for their next home because they want to be able to, have that place to live when school finishes for their children to then start the new school year. But it's busy, I definitely would say that buyers have more opportunities right now. Sellers are giving more concessions or being more generous, if you will, with offering credits and, closing cost assistance, buying down rates, right? Because yes, it may be priced for that much and it may have sold or, it may show that, but really, let's just adjust the prices a little bit because for the affordability right now for many people, with a 6.5 to 7% interest rate, what can they afford really?
And
So, but it's still moving.
no, I appreciate that. And as
Mm,
a realtor myself, it's interesting where trends are going, where the market's going, where the housing market, and I agree with you on a lot of the things that you said as well. You're
mm,
right on spot. And in terms of that, what are some of the trends, speaking of trends that are you seeing in the housing market right now? Is anything really kind of standing out, whether it's new construction, whether it's
mm,
flipping homes or remodeling, all these different things, anything that stands out?
mhm. Well, so I would say, this is the chance for more investors to jump back in, because it was overly saturated with all of our investors fixing and flipping. I even did some fix and flips and Airbnbs and all that during that, period of low interest rates.
Right,
Um, so there's more opportunities now because now, again, not everybody can afford that price of a home right now, the average price of a home. So there are more investors coming in. We do have a lot of new builds with amazing prices. I sold one over in New Smyrna Beach, 10 minutes from the beach for $330,000, a brand new home. And it was very
that's a
lovely,
good
very,
that's a good
very nice
price.
community. Yep, she did buy it cash. She sold a home and, from up north and bought it, but so she had the cash, so they offered her that incentive. So if, but you're buying it if you're buying a home for cash, they're willing, cash is king, so they're always willing to deduct something off the price.
Correct. Right.
However, if it is financing, if you use their lender, they're still giving, incentives, 15 grand towards closing costs, or even I've seen some do like 5% interest rates or 4.75 interest rates because they're buying down the rate. They're using their
Correct.
investors or lenders, right, that are able to offer those. So yeah, they're definitely trying to drive up the buyers for their homes. But
Well, speaking of buyers, what are some of the top three things that you can think of that a buyer should look for when they're looking for a house?
what are the top three things? Well, I mean, it depends, is their location, right? So the
Yep,
location and what's being built around it, will it appreciate, as the hospitals coming in, like Nona's developing, we have even outskirts of Apopka now is widely developing, Claremont, so all those factor into, do you want your house to appreciate or are you just living here temporarily? Are you trying to make money? And so then they always say too, like if you're getting into a house to purchase, you wanna look at the roof, the four major components. How old is
absolutely.
the roof? What costs will I
Hmm.
have to go through, right? The roof, the AC, the plumbing, the electrical, you don't wanna have anything that might hinder your ability to acquire insurance, affordable homeowners insurance. So those are always important, but if it just needs some paint and some new flooring, I'd say go for it, because just fixing it up, as long as it's appealing to the eye, that could double the value or the appreciation of it.
Yeah, and I think curb appeal has a lot to do with that. People
Oh,
want to see,
absolutely.
right? It's kind of like first impressions. It's the same as you're taking care of yourself. It's the same as a house. When you drive up to that house,
Mhm.
and it's got to be a lot. Believe it or not, it has a lot to do with it. And then that outdoor,
Absolutely. Yeah, the
the
wow
out, the
factor.
yes, the wow factor, and then
Yeah.
the outdoor space as well. You
Yeah.
go to the backyard, you see, everything is outdoor living now, here in
Mhm.
Florida too, as well, besides the
Yeah.
mosquitoes.
You're absolutely right. To that point, I just had a listing appointment with someone, and I got to go through and do the tour. He's like, "What should I do?" And I did. The backyard. I was like, "You really need to like pressure wash the fence." Because when you walked in, there was all glass doors, so you could see the backyard, but the backyard wasn't
Was
you
it?
know,
Yeah, it needed
wasn't
some
in that wow
improvement.
factor. And they
Right.
did. And so when I went back after they had cleaned up and they fixed, everything based on improvement, right? Because it's all that when you walk in, they want to be like, wow. So I
That's
even went and
right.
staged it a little bit, to give it that as soon as you walk in, you have that, yes, I could see myself living here. So no,
I
you're
love
absolutely right about that.
So let's go to the opposite direction. Let's talk about sellers, right? What are some of
Hmm.
the most important steps or homeowners should prepare their home for? Like, and you just gave an example, right? You kind of went in there, you talked to your client, you understand the industry, as
Yeah.
realtors, as we are, we understand what to look for.
Mhm.
We understand advice to give because of what customers, are looking for when they're purchasing a home.
Mhm.
So what other type how would you say this? Things that sellers should consider when they're
Mhm.
putting their house on the market.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I love that, right? Like I love going in and I love that they trust me to get my feedback on, what can I do to increase the value, the appeal. So I always say, right, starting as you walk in, you obviously want to walk into a fresh smelling, clean smelling home, have it detailed from top to bottom, even from the baseboards, like people see that. And while it can be a 700 or a $600,000 home, like you see dirt and dust and grime, like it's a turn off. So I would
100%.
definitely
Yeah.
say, right, that fresh smell when you walk in, having it clean, refreshing, but also decluttering, less is more. I don't want to see a lot of stuff personally, and so like I've had people remove some items to just really open up the space. You want to walk in, you want to see, yes, you want to see how you can set up your house, but they also need to see how much space it is, right? And how much light can come in naturally and just give you that home sweet home feeling.
And I like you said, I like the word less is best because if you don't, you have so much on the
Mhm.
walls, right?
Yeah.
You want these customers or these potential buyers to come in, walk into the home, and
Mhm.
automatically feel, okay, this is where my couch is going to go. This is all about me because this
Yep.
is what I'm buying, right? So
Absolutely.
if they feel that as a
Mhm.
seller, I mean, as a buyer, you're more inclined as a seller to be able to get that offer, correct?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. And then if they don't have furniture because they're moving, like I have a special service that I offer where I have a little staging company and I'll go in and bring some items to just make it feel more, some people don't have that imagination. And I would also say paints, neutral paints. I have another house sitting on the market and I know it's because of the color of the paint.
Hmm.
People see that they have a big paint job to do. So I'm actually thinking about going in to paint it myself here in the next week or so because it's not moving. I sell homes. I don't list them. I sell them.
And
I
you
list
you
and sell.
also, I love that. You also said about the natural light. There are some
Mhm.
houses, when you go in some houses and the rooms they don't have a window, right, in
Yeah.
that room. So the best way to offset that is to have a light color paint,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
On the
Yep.
walls,
Neutral. Yep.
neutral.
Absolutely. It just opens it. It makes it look more fresh, clean, crisp. And it gives them that imagination where they can do they can do whatever they want to. That's easier to paint over, if it's dark colors. Reds, they said red, yellow, and what was the other color? Like a green. A red, yellow, and green are colors to stay away from when you're
Stay
painting
away
your
from.
home.
That, ma-
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. So let's kind of, if there are some of our listeners who are wanting to look into getting into the real estate industry, as a profession, any advice?
Mhm. Any advice getting into the real estate
Yeah,
industry?
if they were
Oh,
interested.
be ready. Be ready. No, I think, it's a great um It's a great license to have. They say everybody in Florida has their real estate license, but not everybody should have their real estate license, right?
Right.
It's really for those, it's with all the changes happening, the buyer broker agreements, the compensation, how we can and cannot present, certain negotiations. I think it's just, be ready to take it professionally. It hasn't been taken that seriously for many people, and things are changing, so really be ready to be disciplined. And this is your career. This is your business that you're operating. So it's going in with that mindset, that it's to each his own. And if I'm not taking care of myself and doing what I need to do every morning to be in my routine, to make my calls, to do my business, then you're gonna fail, and don't expect anybody to do anything for you or to give you leads. I think that's the biggest thing is like, oh, this office give me leads. No, I give leads to people that because I can't keep up with leads,
Correct.
right? And
Right.
there's plenty to go around. But I would say, don't ever expect, because I've heard people say like, Elena, you giving out leads, I'm coming over, like I'll teach you how to get leads, get your own leads,
Right.
I'll teach you how to do the business. And then when I trust you, I'll share some leads with you.
I like that, Alena, a lot. Can you do me or do our listeners a favor and provide, as we wrap up, can you provide your phone number to get a hold, have them get a hold of
Mhm.
you, as well as maybe a website they can visit?
Yeah, absolutely. So my phone number, it is my cell. It is 407-801-8219. And that is my business cell. You can text or call that number. And our website is exitpremierlegacy.com. And that's where you'll be able to find other properties coming to market. We do a lot of events, workshops. We're big on community collaboration and growth. So we're going to be doing a lot of workshops on fix and flips. My partners do fix and flips. They buy houses for cash. So in our office in Orlando, located in the Orlando Ice Den, it's a fabulous spot, very central to everything, and lots of people that want to teach and grow and help each other.
Well, this has been such a great insight in your world of what you do, in
Thank
terms of
you.
giving back and in terms of your profession. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be able
You're
to
welcome.
speak to our listeners too as well. And listeners, if you actually like this content, please feel free to share and subscribe, so we can bring more of this to you as well. So thank you so much, and hopefully we can have you back again in the future.
Absolutely, would love that. Thank you, Didier.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to First Media Consulting Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, subscribe today. To nominate a business you would like to recommend to be on our show, go to firstmediaconsulting.com or call. Thank you for listening.